All right, Scott, I believe we're live, so I'm going to turn this image off and turn this on. Bear with us for a second, guys. This is on me. Here we are. No, not that one. Oh. Nailed it, Scott. Let's see. I'm going to delete that one. So, I think people are hearing us, but we are going to.
The vast audience that we have right now.
Yeah, it worked pretty well last week. I think I tried to get too fancy with it this week. Window capture. I want to. Oh, I know what the problem is. I've got to maximize this. I want that one. Where is it? Let's try this one. There. All right. That's the beauty of a live show, folks. Keeps me on my toes. We're figuring this out as we go, but hopefully you're seeing and hearing us. I want to welcome Scott Fridrych.
Thanks for having me on, Dave.
For sure.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah, long-time listener for a week now, right? As this is our episode number 2 out of several million in the future, so hopefully we get our technical issues figured out by then. But Scott is LivCo's director of construction. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about what that role is and what that looks like?
Well, we are in 2 different areas now. So we have North Carolina and Chicago going. So I'm overseeing a team in here, or in Chicago here, of a project manager, an assistant project manager, a site supervisor, and then kind of our jack of all trades. And then I am project manager by committee with none other than Dave Pollard for our project or projects in North Carolina. So just kind of making sure we are keeping the bus in the right direction and exceeding our clients' expectations. But yeah, we've got a good team that I get to manage and oversee, and still gets me the chance to get out of the office and actually see the sticks and bricks going together. So I enjoy what I do and who I work for.
You're just saying that. You're just saying you enjoy the work. Yeah. No, and you've been with us for 6 years, right? 7?
Yeah.
Something like that?
About 6.5 now.
6.5?
I was actually hired on April Fool's, so I think that might have been just a glitch, and I didn't catch the joke, and I've been sticking around here for 6+ years. So.
No, I think it still counts. Yeah, I mean, you were originally hired. I think we were 6 or 7 of us, or pretty lean crew. You were hired as a project manager, right? That was kind of your background a little bit. I believe you worked in home building, right? Mass housing, like Pulte Homes, and then did some stuff for some smaller scale, and then kind of started your own thing, right? And then somehow we found you. I don't even think you were looking for a job, right? I don't know.
I was. I feel like I found you.
Yeah, you were looking.
Yeah, I was like you said. I've been kind of all over the construction industry, but always residential. So I started working on an old house when I was in high school, just kind of helping out the guy who lived there. And at that point in time, I didn't know that most people went down the street to get their base or casing at Home Depot. We were milling it all in this guy's basement. So it was pretty intricate work, but it kind of cut my teeth, and I really enjoyed it. And then I worked in the trades for a little bit as a carpenter, and went to college, got a bachelor's in construction management, came out, like you said, started working in the production builder circuit for a while. Then went into the production flipping. I was working for a company where we were doing like 25 to 30 flips a month. So it was kind of a little goofy, but kind of uninspiring work. It's just kind of putting, they became widgets at that point. And yeah, I did a handful of years by myself, working for my own company, and my wife's pretty successful and travels a lot, or at least was traveling a lot, and it just never really gave me the opportunity to focus and grow my own company. So I went on a job search and I found LivCo, and I fell in love with what I saw as far as the work and the website, and so I pushed real hard and tried my best to get a job here, and the rest is history. So I love where I work, love what we do, and we got a great team to work with.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see how the team has grown and evolved, right? So you've gone from project manager to production manager, and production manager is essentially managing the wholeness of all the construction projects that are going on, and now as director of construction, it's even more so, right? Because you're involved in kind of the leadership team and the direction and future of the company, while still wearing a lot of different hats. So I think, we're at 14 people now, I believe, 14 full time, right? And then we have some part time as well. So it's interesting. I think I've learned as well, right? So I'm the owner of the company. I'm in charge of sales and marketing, but that doesn't mean that all I do is sales and marketing, because from my perspective in growing a company over 13 years, I've pretty much done every job, right? I've entered stuff in QuickBooks through, swept floors to told people where to put a rafter and all that stuff. So in your role, it's pretty similar, right? Like you've done, not necessarily on the design side, but in some ways, yeah, like you've seen it all, right? Like estimating. So how has that kind of impacted, your ability to lead your team, is just kind of the wealth of experience and knowing the challenges and the stresses that go into the different roles in construction?
Well, I think like you said, I mean, you've worn a lot of hats here, and I think when you work for a company this size and you're passionate about what the company does, and I've told you for years, and I'm vocal with everybody about it. This is my company. Whether or not I'm one of the original people who, or known as an owner, I look at this as it's mine. So if I have to pick up a broom and sweep something, pick up a broom and sweep something, obviously that's not, my daily routine, but there isn't any job in this company. I don't think you can work for a smaller company like this and want the success out of it and not be willing to, put on whatever hat needs to be worn that day. Obviously you have your path and the things you're responsible for, but I mean, it's every day that, we're just solving problems. And, it's kind of the unique thing about working for a remodeling company versus, I worked for a production building. It was, you're building the same widget over and over. Every one of these jobs is different, and it's different from day one sitting in the office. We have our processes that we go through to, develop a project, but every one of them has, maybe this one we need to call the structural engineer on, or this one we need to bring in our mason to figure out how we do this. It's just, so I think when you're in a company this size and everybody's kind of, pulling the rope, you just jump on, and you may not be the first on the rope this time, you may be the sixth on the rope, but we're all pulling in the same direction, and we got a team of problem solvers who we're going to figure it out. So, like you said, I just think as an owner or as somebody who's completely committed to your company, you find a way to get everything done and make sure our clients are happy and we deliver an awesome project at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's kind of in 6 years and going from, I mean, I guess if I look at the history of LivCo, right? So we started 13 years ago. It was basically Dave, Russ, and a truck. Actually, we didn't even have a truck. We had Russ's Ford Focus with 2x4s sticking out of the trunk, right? So it's kind of two guys in a truck navigating. At that point, we were doing, institutional foreclosure rehab stuff, right? And then we start to build out.
We're going to bring that back, but like a ladder rack on a forward focus.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of in college when my buddy put like the kayak on his Honda Civic or the canoe over the top of and you couldn't see out of the windshield because of the canoe. It's coming all over the top of it. It's very similar to that.
Ace Ventura with your head out the window.
Exactly. Yeah, you're doing one of these. But yeah, I mean, I think, and I've been quoting and listening to and kind of revisiting a lot of Scott Galloway stuff, and he really talks about people finding their place as an entrepreneur. Do you really want to be an entrepreneur, kind of thing? And there's something to that where he talks about starting a company from scratch is really not that exciting. You're like figuring out how to where you're going to plug the printer in. There's just all these little details that are just so annoying, right? Like when we figured out if we're going to be Google based or Microsoft, like all these little things that are just kind of foundational, they're just kind of boring. So he talks a lot about, an entrepreneurial person who doesn't necessarily want to start at that point. Really the right level is going into a company, between 10 and 50 people. Construction is probably a little bit smaller. Like he's probably talking more about tech startups. And I kind of see that, right? Because we've set the foundation. A lot of those dumb, easy things are mechanized, right? We don't have to worry about toner in the printer. We have just sequences and operations to do that. And now it's really kind of thinking about bigger picture things about how to grow this thing, right? So it's a really cool kind of plateau, hopefully continuing to grow as we've been growing this year and kind of put plans into effect to grow, to be a part of that. Cause we have the brand recognition, we have the resources, we have the team, and it's just kind of a different entrepreneurial feel, which is really cool and terrifying at the same time. Right. But, anyway, that was my Scott Galloway reference for the day. So something else that you mentioned earlier was project management with me. So yeah, talking about growth mode and doing stuff that we don't necessarily do every day. We are co-managing a project in North Carolina because I am here local. Maddie just got down here. I'm a pretty good problem-solving project manager, but I'm not a good operational project manager. I don't understand schedules and how to do them. So what do you think? How's it working? How are we as a team?
I think you've been a pretty good yin to my yang so far on this, or vice versa. I think I've been traveling down there pretty much every 3 or 4 weeks, just try to line up trades to meet with, kind of work through some problem solving. I try to dodge when you're in town or when you're out of town. So if you're out of town, we need some another set of boots on the ground there. But I think we got blessed with a really good client out there and a really cool project. So it's it's not a real quick project where everything has to be super tight. We've got a little bit of space. Each one of the tasks that are happening there seem to be 7 to 10 day tasks. So you've got a little room for overlap, a little room for play with the trades. And I think we started off with a great group of trades out there too. There really aren't any that we're using that I don't feel we use on the next project. So I think we got lucky there. Obviously you did your house out there and we got to vet some of these trades. But I think you and I kind of, we complement each other well. Just do a good job of communicating, and like you're saying, the things that you're good at, might not be my strong suit. I think we're both come from, work to problem. Let's figure it out. There's going to be a solution. I think just sharing that mentality and, both of us wanting to see this project come to fruition. And again, super cool clients. Like they've been great to work with. Some of the clients you have a tough conversation with. It's like, I really think you should do this. It's going to cost you a little bit more. And these clients are, we just want it done right. So, we're giving you the thumbs up. Go ahead. We trust you guys. And, it's made it a little bit easier for you and I to to co-manage this. We can't forget Antonio, so we brought a trim carpenter in who Dave already knew, and he's been kind of our boots on the ground as well when neither one of us can be there. Kind of a jack of all trades as well, so if we have a plastic wall that's coming down, we can have somebody jump in there and take care of it, or we have a couple items that we need to get buttoned up for an inspection. So he's been kind of the third yin to the yang here for us, and so that's definitely helped both when you and I can't be there, and we don't have the tools to do the stuff that just falls on other people's scopes of work. So
yeah,
thank you, Antonio.
Absolutely. I'm sure he's listening right now. He's over there getting things, taking down temp walls and all kinds of stuff, keeping things organized. Yeah, I mean on the trades. Yeah, obviously, my house was a little bit of the pilot to really do it down here, right? And so we've been very fortunate. Even it really started with my house, right? That Jake Harris lives down the street from me and owns 919 Projects and gave me his entire trade list, and I would talk to him about which guys would be better fits for different things that we were doing. So he was instrumental, extremely helpful there. And then Luke Dobbins at Wake Remodeling has been great, right? I mean, we don't just go and call up. I don't want to call them our competition. There's plenty of work to go around, and we're peers, and we all want to grow our companies together, right? And just have more professional remodeling companies do better work. But yeah, I mean, if we call them up and I need someone to do stairs, who do you recommend? They've been really open. I think Eddie Casanova over at Distinctive or the construction director over there has been really helpful. So yeah, I mean, community wise down here, HBA, Remodelers Council has been really, really great resource. It's a great community. The labor force has been so hardworking. It is pretty incredible to see that the extra hours and the Saturdays that the folks are putting in is pretty cool to see. I'm used to. I don't want to poo-poo Chicago labor because it's an incredible labor force, but I am experienced in. Maybe it's because we've done so many projects in Chicago too, of trade showing up and finding a reason to leave, right? Where something's not right, and I feel like maybe we've been fortunate here, but we haven't really had that. Everybody shows up ready to work, ready to get it done. They planned it out the day before, and I think, and I know this is questions for you, but it's really just it's conversation, right? It's really valuable for me doing this. I mean, honestly, I've been designing and building stuff since I was 14, when I did my brother's edition, or 15. But it's really valuable for me, who's so often looking at a computer screen, talking to clients about what their home can be, talking about the potential in their home, reviewing designs, coming up with design concepts, doing all the marketing of it, to go back in and remember and revisit how frickin' complex it is, the work that we do, and how much work goes into it. It's pretty mind-blowing. I mean, it is an incredible effort of problem solving, skilled labor, making sure the details come together correctly from the day you pour concrete, right, to the day the cabinet comes in to be installed and the one side isn't finished, right? Like, it's literally just a billion things, and we're so used to just looking at it on paper from the design side and kind of forgetting that piece of it. And then the North Carolina project that's under construction right now, just as an example, the logistics of 3 families living in a house and moving around, and their house getting smaller and then growing in terms of the construction areas, and then moving upstairs is unbelievably complex. And it's fun when we're able to solve it and cause as little pain as possible. I mean, right now we're changing over all the mechanical systems. So we got 92 degrees and humid, just 10 dudes out there busting their butts trying to get it done for them, right? So that we can get the AC back on. Just a reminder of how much easier it is when people move out. Anyway, that was me talking a whole bunch. So I do want to apologize. There are times when, as a project management, operationally limited person, where I get overwhelmed by a bunch of stuff, and I literally just dump it all on Scott. Like, I'm tapping out. I need 2 days to collect my thoughts. I can figure this out, but if you can make all these phone calls, that would be great.
And I mean, I'm of the mentality that if you weren't there, I would figure out how to manage this thing from here. Like, that's just kind of, my mentality. But I don't have to think that. You are there to help solve these problems. And, like you said, we've got a great trade base. Dave sent me a video this morning of the army of trades we have out there working on the house today. And keep in mind that a good portion of that army are crawling around in a dank crawl space.
Yeah.
So, like switching out a furnace in a crawl space. So it's not a desirable place to be, especially on a 90-degree day.
And there's no cooling.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a balancing act, and like you said, Dave, with the clients living there and in-laws on both sides of the house, we're now trying to find a way to break up the schedule a little bit. Where, me, especially from my production mentality, is build this critical path schedule, and by hell or high water, we're going to hold people to it. And at this point, we're kind of like, okay, we're to the point now where we need to make it safe for the mother-in-law to enter into the new area. And so we're going to have to finish this area first and then come back and double back and finish this area later. And not have this, not lose sight of the schedule and have this thing just, take a mind of its own. So it's kind of a work in progress. Like we said, it's a little bit different than our normal projects. This house has already been added on to 2 or 3 times too. So like your house that we got to start there, I don't think it was a newer house. Probably nobody's ever remodeled anything in there. So it's a little bit more cut and dry when you open a wall and you know what's there is what you expected to be there. In this house, it's kind of you open something that's like, this wasn't tied into this correctly, and now, we've got to go through and adapt and overcome and start bringing the trades in and saying, what can we do here? Can we move this over to this spot instead of here? And again, I mean, we've got a great batch of trades there. It helps that our plumber and electrician work for the same company, so they've kind of...
And they know Josh.
And they know
they got a direct line to the HVAC guy. They're all kind of working together, right?
So when we have a bunch of, I guess, challenges in the mechanicals, and all 3 of these guys work together, it definitely takes a burden off of us and lets them problem solve it. And, we can be a fly on the wall just watching and answering questions when we can.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. And even talking about the critical path of the schedule and moving the schedule. So just as an example, all of a sudden we heard from the custom cabinet shop that they're running behind. Well, everything obviously is dependent on kitchen cabinets. We have a massive amount of cabinetry going into this project. So we look at a couple scenarios. And they're the installer, right? And so we look at, are there areas of cabinets that we can get in sooner to be able to keep aspects moving. And now I'm kind of thinking about, with some of those other delays, we might move them into the family room, and then get the other than the trim work, get the office completed, right? Because we can get all that. Anyway, this is what we deal with, right? And there's a lot of thinking out loud and then moving the pieces around. And so if one thing moves, let's move something else up. But it's also not quite as simple as that, because we don't necessarily know that the trade is available to say, hey, we're going to move you to start tomorrow now and then move this over here. So it is definitely different than building a Pulte home, which is why Pulte Homes doesn't do this. And Pulte Homes doesn't even build their pool houses. They just build the house, right? So it's pretty cool. We're starting to run at time here, but I know we started a little bit late. But just some general questions. What's a What's a good day at LivCo look like for you? Do you remember one?
Good day. I remember we used to have the Blackhawks siren in there. We had the flashing lights whenever we had a new DA signed. All of a sudden, the light would go off and the horns would go off, and we have not done that in a while. A good day for me is at the end of the day when I can start marking stuff up on the planner. I had a day yesterday where I think it was like 2:30 before I was actually able to start looking at my planner. So, some of those days your day controls you instead of you controlling it. And, you roll with the punches. You find some time to dig in and get the stuff done that you absolutely have to get done. But as cheesy as it is, I think all the days here are good days, and we've got a fun group of people that we work with. If I was sitting in the other room, you'd see we don't have any offices. We're in an old elementary school here in Chicago, and it's just a big wide open office. So, everybody's vocal, everybody's fun. It's pretty easy to walk over and ask a question or tell a joke. Instead of the water cooler in our office, we've got a candy machine, so you can walk over and put a penny in the gumball machine. And
Good and Plenty's or Mike and Ike's?
No, the Good and Plenty's were the first. So that was kind of a LivCo tradition. So we the inaugural candy, and it was Good and Plenty's. And then we found out that we now have 2 Brazilians who work for our company, and apparently, I don't know if this is for all of Brazil, but our 2 Brazilians do not like licorice. So we went from that to Mike and Ike's, and I think now we've got like gummies, sweet tarts, or something in there. But again, this kind of at some point in time we had a bubble hockey game in our office.
That's right.
So we try to keep it light. We're a fun group. I guess when clients aren't calling because they're upset and they're happy, and numbers are falling in place where we want them to, and we're signing projects. Those are all good days at LivCo. But there's far more good days than there are bad days. But there's definitely the days where, like you said, the cabinet gets delivered and the side of that cabinet isn't finished, and all of a sudden that's now going to affect the countertop measure, and so that's when you get to be the problem solver. And at the end of the day, when you solve a problem, those are fun days too. But when the problem arises, that's usually not fun. So
yeah, I mean, to continue on that thought of when you solve the problem, that's a good day too. I continually am enamored by what we're able to accomplish, which I don't think, not to go back to the production home building model, but like what we're actually able to do and solve, from concept, even in the design phase, right? The stuff that we're able to say we can do this and make this really special, and then when we actually do it in the field is pretty daggone cool. I continue to be amazed by what our team's able to accomplish. A lot of steel in that Elmhurst second story addition like that. Whoo! Just incredible.
No, that was a fun one to do, though.
Yeah.
You see a gigantic crane on a residential project. We're picking steel and taking it over a 30-foot tree in the front yard.
Well, you're just doing it at Brown the other day too on the garage project. Well, they didn't bring a crane in. Did they just do that with guys in a lift?
No, they had a boat.
They did, yeah.
It wasn't a crane at the Elmhurst project, but it was.
Cranes are fun.
Yeah, those are fun. You go out there on a sunny day and they're framing. I remember those days. We're in Chicago, so there's also the days when they're out there in the gray, cold, miserable days, and you're shoveling snow off the deck before you start standing walls. But you walk out there the other day and it's sunny, and the crane's putting material up there, and there's 7 carpenters out there, and we got a bunch of pictures of it. We got it on our social media, which is awesome because that's like the ideal construction day. So it's fun to capture some of that and get some content.
And then I have the flip question of that, and you can answer if you want, but I was going to answer for me first because I'm asking myself questions. I'm not going to say what does a bad day at LivCo look like, but what is a not as good day? It's usually when someone calls it there's water in the basement. And you're like, what? I don't understand, like all this stuff. And usually it's because someone unplugged something. It's always something's
Yeah.
unplugged, or a refrigerator that had all their meats in it.
So
They're like,
we used to
what?
have a general rule of thumb in the construction industry, and we try to preach it here too. But on that, it was if you unplug the sump pump or the fridge because you need that outlet, you have to leave your car keys there. Because at the end of the day, you can't leave the job site without your car keys, and you're gonna go, oh, I gotta run back and plug that sump pump or that freezer back in. Unfortunately, sometimes that just doesn't apply, and it happens, and we get those calls. So, in relation to that, the bad days are anytime you get a client who calls and they're upset about something, and it happens. I mean, I think we do a better job than most at avoiding those by doing things right, but it never fails that this is a super stressful situation having people in your house, and at some point in time you just want us done and out of there, and we're just trying to reiterate, hey, we have the same common goal. We want to get out of your house just as fast as you want us out of here. So, but every once in a while the window gets broken or a cabinet gets delivered wrong, or and it's fielding those calls and just reassuring our clients that we're taking care of them, we got their back, we're going to get this done, and at the end of the job, you're not going to even remember this 6 months down the road as you're enjoying the space. And so the the big bad day for me is fielding unhappy clients calls, which again, we don't have a lot of them, so I don't have a lot of bad days.
Well, and even in the basement and the meats, we'll take care of it, right? We'll get it fixed. I remember one of my favorite, it's not my favorite, but it was just kind of crazy. I was sitting there, Eric and Lucas, the trim carpenters, were working on a project in LaGrange, and it's kind of an older house, and we're doing some pretty fancy trim work. And they cut the board, and a little piece of wood shot off like a bullet and just put like a hole right through the window. We're like, I guess that's why you wear safety glasses, but like, when does that happen? Like now, anytime we cut anything inside of a house, do we need to cover all the windows? Right? Like you literally can't anticipate everything. It's not possible. There's just too many things. So we do a pretty good job, I think, of trying to think through and have everything covered, but sometimes stuff is going to happen. Sometimes you're going to tell the guy, do not do any drywall work in the dining room because that's their temporary kitchen. And then somebody else goes and does all the drywall work in the dining room on top of the kitchen. Like, I don't know. Like, do I have to have a guard standing there or like a sign where it's roped off? Like, do not do this. And I do it all the time, right? Rough framing, and we'll have that kitchen wall that's not supposed to be covered in sheetrock or in drywall. So write no drywall, no sheetrock. Try and write in Spanish, all the stuff. It's always covered in drywall. It's always covered in drywall. I don't know.
Murphy's Law.
Like they go in and they do it, and they're really good at their craft and what they do. But they, the job is to cover everything in sheetrock. Why would you not do this wall? It's always fascinating. All right, I got one last question, and then we'll move on. Hopefully, this is even live. I don't know because Meg's not here to be my monitor. I'm assuming this is going out to the world. I talked to Sarah about it a little bit last week, kind of DIY projects. What is your favorite DIY project that you've done?
Ooh. I'm pretty happy with our basement. So I'm kind of like or like my wife likes to say, she's like the shoe cobbler's wife.
Yeah. Kids have no shoes.
When you're in construction, your house is always under construction. So I framed my basement, and about 4 years later, I finally hired my buddy to come in and finish it. So I was supposed to host the Super Bowl party, and I hosted the next year's Super Bowl party. So we put a lot of time and effort into the basement, and kind of there, like I said, I kind of waved the white flag after my wife was on me enough about it that I just paid somebody to come in and finish most of it up for me. My personal DIY is probably our office at home. I built all the cabinets for it with glass inserts in the doors and bookcases and file cabinet drawers with slow close, glides and stuff like that. So I knew I was capable of doing it just because I worked as a carpenter. I've done plenty of trim carpentry, but as a person, I really built cabinets myself. I did a concrete countertop, which are super heavy if you've never had to deal with a concrete countertop. So that thing is staying there now for the life of the home.
It's holding up the basement
Yeah.
floor. Yeah.
It's not far from it. So my wife was like, I'm not sure I like the concrete countertop. I was like, then put something on it because it's not going anywhere. But
That's awesome. Yeah, I always felt like, so in architecture school, I and a bunch of us got really into building furniture. We were really good at building the world's heaviest furniture. I think furniture companies have somehow figured out how to build stuff that's not, that heavy. And then we'd cast plaster and concrete and all that stuff. So the cabinets are holding up well. Should we have Ann on next to confirm that?
Ooh, she's probably going to call into our company again and try and get LivCo to do a project in my house, unbeknownst to me. So, but no, cabinets are holding up. We did a coffered ceiling that matches them, and the office is one of the cooler places. But I work at LivCo now. I'm not in that office anymore, so she pretty much has it to herself.
With the guitars behind her for her calls.
Yeah. She gets to stare at 3 guitars on the wall that don't get much action anymore because my kids pretty much monopolize my time, which is a good thing. But yeah, she's like, do I have to keep looking at the guitars on the wall in my office?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
All right, man. I think we're going to wrap here. See, it's pretty easy to talk for 35, 40 minutes, right? After this, we're probably going to talk through project management stuff for like 90 minutes, but I think we're all good. Scott, thanks for being on, man. Episode 000000002. So look forward to seeing everyone next Wednesday morning, and hopefully, I shouldn't say hopefully, I will have technical difficulties hammered out by then.